Welcome to the latest edition of the Core podcast series. My name is Adrian Terry, and I'm joined once again today by Jerry Powers. How are you, Jerry?
Good, Adrian, thanks.
Today is Saturday, June 26, 2021, and we're here to give you an update about local affairs in the town of Edgewood, including this most recent town council meeting on Wednesday, June 23rd. There was a significant update, or we want to give you a significant update rather, about the upcoming election for 5 commissioners for the town of Edgewood as we transition to a new form of local government, and some of the discussion that has centered around how citizens will get the opportunity to vote in this upcoming election. Jerry, why don't you give the folks a summary of how that issue came before the town council?
Well, essentially, what remains, we've districted the town now, but what remains is the issue about how we're going to vote. Are we going to vote for all 5 commissioners, which we've always done historically in Edgewood? 3 other towns in New Mexico that are commission manager do it. That's the preference of the people. The councilors got 150 letters people wrote in expressing their preference for at-large voting, which is for all 5. And there was one call-in that was kind of on the fence, it seemed like, but everybody else was in favor of it. So there was a motion made by Councilor Abrams to vote that way, to do the will of the people and vote at large. So let's see what happened.
Number 1, at the next regular local election to be held on November 2nd, 2021, the candidates shall live in the district they run for and be elected at large to fill the following elective offices. I would like to add in 1 municipal judge under 1 commissioner for District 5. That's also in red. And I would like to change the date that says passed, approved, and adopted this 23rd day of June 2021. I think that clarifies it enough to get us an election in November.
And I do second that, and just again appeal to you both to pass this and really listen to what the public is saying.
Because if you read your email, you got the same number I got from citizens requesting that they be allowed to vote at large. And that's all I got clarification of.
I think I got about 50 today in favor of at large.
Counselor,
and already had the 98, of course.
Do we have any other discussion? We've clarified the motion. Got a motion and a second. Hearing no further discussion, Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Holle, how do you vote?
Nay, I think it's prudent that we wait for the Attorney General's opinion.
I'm waiting for the Attorney General's position as well. Nay. This resolution dies for lack of majority.
Well, having looked at that, I think that's a remarkable clip. Clearly, it appears that Councilor Abraham is offering a proposal that is entirely reasonable, consistent with the public input, and yet there was opposition to it. Hard to imagine.
Yeah, and the excuse that Abrams and Holle are using is they're waiting on an opinion from the Attorney General, which they've already solicited one from the Secretary of State, who is the chief election officer of the state of New Mexico. She decides how the elections are run and which laws apply to what. So she wrote back when they asked for her opinion. They didn't get the answer they wanted, which was you can't vote at large, you can't vote for all. That's what they're angling it for. So she said, it's a local decision, you can decide. So they put it up for decision, and once again, Councilors Abraham and Jaramillo are trying to do the will of the people. They're taking public input. They're trying to implement it through a vote, and the other 2 are obstructing the process, saying we have to get yet another opinion from another state agency until they get the answer that they want.
Just to frame the issues for those of you that are at home, As part of the transition to this new form of local government, the town had to be divided into 5 separate districts.
Mhm.
And that work was actually done recently by the firm Research and Polling. And the goal of that process was to create districts that were as equal in population as possible.
Right.
The issue that is presented before the town is not that we'll have districts and not that a person has to live in the district that they want to represent, but rather who gets to vote for these people.
Right.
Just the people who live within that district or everybody.
Right.
And we believe that we're at a critical juncture for this town as we transition to a new form of local government. And it's important that voters have the fullest rights possible to participate in the affairs of local government. And that seems to be the will that was expressed, not only through the comments that the councilors received via email, but also the public comment that was presented in the meeting.
Right, right. And, just to do a quick recap, where we were before all this, before CORE was formed, is the town had been hijacked basically by John Bassett and Councilors Abrams and Holle, who have been his enablers to do all the stuff that he got removed from office for. And people felt like they weren't getting any input. They weren't listened to by their elected representatives. They weren't getting what they wanted, but the councilors and the mayor were getting their personal agendas across. So here we are again in that same battle. You've got Councilors Abraham and Harmio trying to do what the people want done, and you got the other two obstructing. So the special election was called for. CORE circulated a petition to get this election done, and people turned out 300% of normal turnout, 70% voted for commission manager, primarily to stop the corruption and get a voice in their government. So the John Abrams and John Bassett and Holle voted to move that special election, put it off into the future, and not hold it according to law. So Councilors Abraham and Jaramillo had to go to a judge and have them ordered to hold it on time according to the law in August of last year. The election was held. We all know the results. So then, now the election for commissioners has to happen in November. In order for that to happen, the town had to be districted. And Abrams and Holle were again obstructing that process. Well, we can't for various excuses. There's always some excuse why they couldn't district the town. So again, Councilor Abraham and Councilor Jaramillo went to a judge at their own expense, at some considerable expense, to have the judge order Abrams and Holle to follow the law, district the town. And we've got a clip here of the judge and her reaction. It's not a small reaction, so let's play that clip.
Something has to be done. I mean, council, the governing body has been given the mandate to transition. And so you can't sit there and twiddle your thumbs trying to wait for data that's not going to happen, and then discover that, okay, it's not going to happen, but darn it, the election is now a month away. What are we going to do? I mean, you say in your pleadings over and over and over again, oh, it's 9 months away. 9 months is nothing when you have to redistrict and people have to decide where they're going to run, if they're going to run, get on the ballot, get the petition signed, all of those things. So I mean, I think you're really coming, right head into the wall of no return if you don't start doing something to transition.
Having viewed that, I don't think the judge could be any more clear that time is of the essence.
Right.
Absolutely critical to this process because there are statutory deadlines and mandates that the town has to adhere to.
Right.
And we've noticed that there's been a pattern in practice of running up against these deadlines while they seek information or opinions from other state agencies like the Secretary of State's office or the Attorney General's office, looking for an opinion that's in their favor as opposed to what the law clearly instructs them what to do.
And then they do agency shopping. If they don't get what the answer they want from this agency, they go to that agency, and then they go to that agency until finally somebody has to haul them before a judge and have the judge order them to do the right thing. So not only did the judge order them, she said, you can't just sit here and twiddle your thumbs. It's been 6 months, you've done nothing. So they were forced to district the town If they hadn't, and who hadn't gone before a judge, they might have blown the November election, which of course, who would have remained in office had they blown the election? So we're still at risk that way. They keep pushing these deadlines. We're about 10 days away from a deadline where they have to decide whether we're voting at large or we're voting by single member districts, and they're still playing with fire. So I don't know if we're going to have to go before a judge, or the county clerk has said that if they don't answer, she will take it to a judge. But it's really pathetic to have every time to have a judge tell them what to do when it's so clear. To them, it's confusing. They express this disingenuous confusion in order not to act and not to do anything.
Well, you may wonder why we think that the town always has nefarious motives, but that's because over the course of time, we've determined that many of the statements and representations that they make are not in fact true. As to the districting issue specifically, the town made representations, and I can't remember if it was in court or in a public meeting of the governing body, where the town clerk had represented that he had been in the process of undertaking this districting.
Right.
But at the time that statement was made, you had filed a request for public records, and you had determined that they had just contacted Research and Polling.
Well, yeah, that's right. And it happens all the time that they lie to us, they dissemble, they deceive the public. And that's why I sent in that IPRA request, because they said, we've been working on this for 6 months. So I sent the request in. It turned out that only when they got the judge's writ did they actually make contact with Research and Polling and get the ball rolling. So it's really unfortunate, but we have this kind of corrupt thing that's going through the town. The Mayor Bassett only hired people that would follow whatever he wanted lockstep, including his counselors. He appointed Counselor Holle, and she has absolutely enabled everything that all this obstructionism that's gone on, and now she's doing it in concert with John Abrams.
Well, technology can be a bear and a burden sometimes, but every now and again it has its benefits. And one of the things that is certainly true with Counselor Holle is that she has a series of votes that are on the record. These things are memorialized electronically forever. And would you believe that in some of these votes, she was opposed to public comment at town meetings?
Yeah, I mean, it's astounding, but it's on the record. And that's what CORE was formed for, was to try to restore Edgewood to an open, transparent, ethical, responsible government. And you can't have that when you don't want to hear from the people you work for. They work for us, and they're our representatives, supposed to be. And we've got Counselor Abraham and Jaramillo that were trying desperately with everything they've got to do the will of the people, and you've got the other two going exactly against the will of the people.
Well, I'm troubled to see the overwhelming voice and majority of comments about this process where the citizens say, we want to participate, we want the fullest measure of involvement, and then to have those voices just squelched and pushed to the side as if it doesn't matter. And one of the things that's problematic about these requests for opinions to the Secretary of State's office and to the Attorney General's office is that this issue is certainly one of those matters that is of local concern and of local control and local decision making. And the Mayor Pro Tem, from what we can see on the video of the town council meeting, for those who didn't have an opportunity to participate live, you can see that he would rather take the opinion of somebody from Santa Fe and substitute that for the will of this local community.
And, you know, I know this is true for me, and I think it's true for most people that live here. We live here for a reason. We don't live in Santa Fe for a reason. Our values aren't reflected, or they're different than the people in Santa Fe, and that's why the Constitution provides for local control to reflect the differing points of view and values of as many groups, and you can vote with your feet. If you don't like the values of the people in Santa Fe, then you come to Edgewood. If you don't like that, you go somewhere else. So, yeah, it's very important to have local representation. And we don't. We have these people punting the issues and shopping from agency to agency to get a desired outcome for their personal agenda, to vote only within their neighborhoods. They believe that's the only way they're going to get reelected. That may be true, but I don't believe they're gonna get reelected anyway. When you see their behavior, and it, like you said, it's memorialized in these videos, audio, it's on the record that they consistently vote against what people here want. They're not maintaining the roads, they're not building new trails, they've shut down the spending on the equestrian center maintenance and also on our open space. Kids here have nothing to do, we hear that all the time. They need to have recreational opportunities. And so they're not maintaining the roads, they're not doing the most basic functions of government, they're not allowing for recreational opportunities, but they are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with the town attorney, without a vote of the council, to fight public opinion, to fight districting, to fight all these things. They've appealed all these things that they were ordered to do by the court.
And these sums of money that the town attorney is charging and invoicing the town for are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
In the last few months, it's been a couple $100,000.
And one of the things that's important for the governing body to do as part of their function and duty is financial oversight. And in the course of time, the town has been unwilling to produce the background underlying records to the members of the governing body so that they can conduct that level of financial oversight.
Yeah, and Councilor Jaramillo is a professional government auditor. She audits government agencies, municipalities, state agencies, and they will not let her anywhere near the financial information. And I guess there's a reason for that, because we've now sunk to an all-time new low with the fiscal irresponsibility, in that the state auditing agency, the Office of the State Auditor, has now required Edgewood to have a fiscal agent, to hire Middle Rio Grande Council of Governments and pay them to monitor the expenditures of the town, because they can't handle their own finances. It's that bad. So it's kind of like when you're a kid and your mom takes your lunch money away and gives it to your sister and says, now make sure he spends it on lunch, not on Cokes and candy and whatever else.
And it's unfortunate, but that's the level of babysitting that this town requires.
Yeah.
And part of that is bolstered by the audit report that has just been released to the public. No action has been taken on it at this last meeting because apparently the auditing firm was unavailable to give an in-person presentation. But there were a number of findings in this most recent audit report that suggest the town cannot manage its own finances.
Yeah, that's absolutely what they're saying. And historically, the town used to get one violation or finding, audit finding as they call them. And now we're getting 5 to 8, whatever number, that has escalated enormously because of the lack of diligence, the lack of responsibility, and the lack of basic housekeeping functions.
Well, we believe that accountability, particularly for the public's money, is the bare minimum that should be required and expected of these town officials and appointees. One of the other things that came up in this town meeting was a revelation. All things are revelations when you're talking about the Edgewood governing body, because they are so closed door and refuse to provide transparency. But one of the things that came up was this newfound objection to at-large voting, which could be that such a voting measure is unconstitutional. Now, we're hard-pressed to believe that that's true, because there are other municipalities in the state of New Mexico that do exactly what we think Edgewood should do, which is vote at large for all commissioners, even though they're organized under the commission manager form of government.
Well, the first thing I did when I heard that is I looked up the statute, and it was for municipal home rule. Municipalities that have adopted a charter through a public process where the public has to vote on the charter. Edgewood has not done any of that. And so they're inventing new excuses that don't even remotely apply. I'm a layman, you're an attorney. I could read that statute, and the plain reading of the statute was this was for home rule municipalities only. So now they're just stretching the bounds of credulity, and it's like science fiction. They're making up these strange stories in order to stop at-large voting. They're desperately trying to hold on to their power and get reelected. So the one thing is, the people have been enormously successful with installing this new government commission manager to stop the corruption. And now we need to finish the job. The November election is coming up. There are some good candidates, I understand, that are running, that are principle-based people that want to restore representative government to democracy, where to Edgewood, where people actually are, their views are taken into account, and the government, it becomes a reflection of the will of the people, not those few that have a personal agenda that have been elected and are holding on with everything they've got to that power.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, Jerry. And we certainly want to take this opportunity to continue our praise and applause for Audrey Jaramillo and Councilor Sherry Abraham for the work that they have done for this community, for the representation that they provide to all citizens, not just those who are their friends and neighbors, and for putting their own time, effort, energy, blood, sweat, tears, and money to just require that Councilor Abrams, who's driving this ship, and Councilor Holle would do what the law requires. And we believe that in the course of these various actions, including one filed by members of CORE, a writ of mandamus filed by Audrey and Sherry in 2020, and then a second writ of mandamus in early 2021, that in each instance the law was extraordinarily clear.
Yes.
The obligations on the government were not confusing. The timelines and obligations were set by statute, and these people refused to acknowledge black and white print on paper.
And Abrams and Holle and Bassett have lost every one of those battles, but they have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of Edgewood's tax money that could go to trails, swimming pools, recreational facilities, and road maintenance. They have spent all that money fighting only to lose in the end, because it was so obvious. It was obvious to all of us that what needed to happen. The statutes are written pretty plainly, and we could read them, but they, unfortunately, they have wasted all our tax money doing that.
And that raises a question, one that we've been asking for some time and we continue to seek after, which is, what is the town attorney's role in driving the agenda of this local community? Because there are a number of actions, and as a general practice, for the town to take official action, they need to do it in public, at a meeting with adequate notice. And it seems like there has never been a meeting and there has never been a vote of the governing body where a majority has said, town attorney, we direct you to do X, Y, and Z.
Yes, please go waste our money fighting futile legal battles for our own personal agenda. Nobody's ever voted on that. John Abrams and Linda Holle seem to be lockstep in agreement about doing it, but you can't just spend town money without a vote of the council like that, especially not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And another thing that is bothersome to me, and may not be readily apparent to everybody, is the role that the town attorney who's been attending the town meetings has been filling and in the manner in which she's been participating in these meetings. As an attorney, if you're my client, my job is to give you counsel when you ask for it, not to interfere in your business.
Yeah.
You certainly speak for yourself. And this town attorney is constantly interfering, offering her opinions, giving unsolicited comments and advice, and essentially acting like a fifth member of the governing body, even though she's never been elected to participate and she doesn't have the floor at the time that she's making these arguments that always seem to be in line with what used to be the Gang of Three and is now the remaining two, Abrams and Holle,
Yeah.
and has specifically stated on the record to Councilors Abraham and Jaramillo that because you hired an attorney to force the town to do what's right, I won't talk to you. I won't give you any information. I won't give you any advice. You can go consult with a private attorney on your own dime. And that's not right.
And she claims to represent the governing body while at the same time won't even talk to two of its members. You know, there's so much wrong here. We need to finish this job that we started to stop this corruption in town. The town attorney has been corrupted as well. And it's easy to do, follow the money. They're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this, but they're not representing the people. And that's what they're there to do. If they represented the entire governing body by votes only, they would be representing the town's people through its representatives. They're not doing that.
No, and another issue is how far does this cancer go?
Yeah.
You know, how big is the tumor? We certainly know that it includes certain elected officials, including one that we've had removed by the courts, and it may include some of the staff. One of the issues that kind of piggybacks off what you're saying, Jerry, was Sherry Abraham says, I'm not getting representation that is required because of this issue with the town attorney.
Right.
And I think the town should go out and bid for new lawyers.
Yeah,
Seems reasonable to me.
right.
And all the governing body has to do is to say, yeah, send this out to bid. And then the town staff comes in and creates all the paperwork and makes that process come into reality.
Yeah,
And in this instance, not only was there objection to Councilor Abraham's request to get new attorneys, the Mayor Pro Tem John Abrams actually demanded that if anything were to come across his desk of that ilk, that she needed to draft it herself. I've never heard of such a thing.
no, it really is unheard of. And you were saying we really appreciate Councilor Abraham and Jaramillo standing up. It's been an enormous personal risk and abuse by Abrams, as well as expense. They've expended their own money, which is also unheard of. Fighting with legal fees, paying legal fees to get them to do what's required by law. And they've won at every juncture. So they were right all along, but they're having to spend their own money to do it. It's unheard of. And it's an extraordinary personal sacrifice, and I want to thank them as well. I want to show another clip here, just a short one, and then we're getting to the end here. But this is what happens, and this is the kind of dismissive, violent, and harassing behavior that's exhibited when Councilor Abraham or Jaramillo, but in this case Abraham, tries to stand up for the people and what they want. Let's play that clip.
Miss Nixon, I would like to request you to refrain from giving us legal advice, as you do not represent myself. You clearly stated in a previous...
Counselor, I'm going to stop this. Counselor, you are out of order.
You can see how that kind of behavior should never be directed toward any counselor, any person. I wouldn't let my sister be treated that way, or my mother be treated that way. So you got to remember too that Abrams also ordered Sherry Abraham removed, a counselor, elected counselor, removed from a public meeting by force by the police chief for trying to bring forward information that should have been brought forward by Abrams himself. And he hid it regarding the sale of the town hall property.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely remarkable. And I think one of the things that is a sign of respect, Jerry, is when you tell people the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just to level with someone is the most honorable, dignified thing that you can do. Mm-hmm. And we'd like to show you a clip now of Councilor Jaramillo asking a question, legitimate question on a fundamental issue about voting, to the Mayor Pro Tem John Abrams and to Councilor Holle about what their position is. What do you think? How do you believe the people should vote in this upcoming election? And let's go ahead and see what kind of response she gets.
I guess the bottom line is where do you two stand? What do you want?
Counselor, I would love to hear from the Attorney General's office. That's what I would love.
So you can see from this clip that their silence is telling. And the answer of dissembling and shifting the burden onto somebody else is telling. And it goes to show the level of contempt and, frankly, disrespect that these elected officials have for the citizens of this community when you won't tell us what you think.
And they're supposed to work for the citizens. We should know where they stand on issues at all times. So he's in a tough spot because he has a personal agenda. He doesn't want to vote at large. He thinks he can get reelected if we don't vote at large. And so rather than come out and say, I'm against it, he just tries to hide where his positions really are, and he'll shift blame to any agency. We have to have an opinion from them. Well, I didn't get the answer I wanted, so we'll go to another agency, and it just keeps going. So it is dishonest behavior. We deserve better than that. I want to encourage everybody to turn out in huge numbers in November. Let's elect 5 honorable, honest people. Edgewood deserves it. We deserve roads, trails, We don't deserve lawsuits and spending our money on personal agendas of the people that got elected. So I think we have an opportunity for a brand new start here.
Truly, sunrise is coming, and it will be a completely new day for Edgewood and its local citizens. We would like to thank you for tuning in for the information that you need to know. This is Citizens for an Open and Responsible Edgewood. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you soon.